Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, making you welcome at over 40 hotels in Europe.
8:34, a listening warning now here on LBC, particularly if you are of school age, because it is school holidays in some part of the country and you're possibly doing revision for some exams or whatever it might be. This is going to be some tough listening now. It really is a particularly gruesome case. And I'm speaking of someone who's been around this business for quite a few decades now. 2 sadistic schoolgirls who took selfies as they murdered a vulnerable woman in her home have been told they'll be locked up for life. The teenagers, who were aged 13 and 14 at the time of the attack, were found guilty yesterday after a jury heard how they killed Angela Wrightson for fun. Their victim, who was just 39, suffered more than 100 wounds as the pair beat her with implements including a stick studded with screws and a shovel, and then smashed a television on her head. If you're listening in the first hour, you'll hear we discuss the background of some of these girls. While Girl B, as she is known, did come from a stable family, she ran away from home several times and was described as having educational problems. Girl A, try this on, regularly watched her mother get beaten as she grew up. She has 3 siblings, none with the same father as her. All her siblings' fathers have been in jail. LBC's reporter Anna Harding is in Leeds and was at Leeds Crown Court yesterday. How did the jury react from what they heard, Anna? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Well, like you say, this really is a shocking case, and some of the evidence that's been heard over the last 7 weeks of this trial really has been stuff of, complete. You can't believe that children would do something like this. Now, the girls actually throughout this entire case have shown absolutely no remorse whatsoever. After carrying out the attack, they were even laughing and joking and taking selfies in the back of the police van. They called 999 to ask for a lift home and said that they wanted them to hurry up because they were freezing cold.
And they were laughing as they made that call, weren't they?
Yeah, the call itself really is. I mean, you can hear them chuckling and the call handler saying, "Why are you laughing? What are you laughing for?" And they're just saying that it's funny. It's just funny. Now, these girls are going to be sentenced on Thursday, but the family of their victim, Angela Wrightson, say no sentence, regardless of its severity, will obviously ever bring Angie back. And the 2 girls responsible will one day be women themselves, free to live their lives and have children of their own, perhaps, which is a right that was taken away from their victim.
Thanks, sir. That's Anna Harding reporting from Leeds, outside the Crown Court where that case was heard yesterday. It is particularly brutal. The victim's home is in Hartlepool in County Durham. The younger of the 2 girls made a phone call to a friend who heard her say, "Go on, smash her head in, bray her, effing kill her," as another person laughed in the background. There was music playing as well. They kicked her. They paused while beating her I did warn you, this is tough listening, by the way, to take a selfie with Miss Wrightson the victim slumped injured behind them on the sofa. They then stripped her naked and defiled her body as she lay helpless. One of them will become one of the youngest girls convicted of murder in Britain. Dr. David Holmes is a criminal psychologist at Manchester Metropolitan University. He wrote Born to Kill, Nature and Nurture. At first sight, you have to say that this looks like an evil act. Can people be born evil? Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Sorry. I'm afraid they can. We are very reluctant to accept it. As a society, we always like to think that they've been twisted somehow by the environment and their upbringing. But some individuals are born with a predisposition, if you like, that would enable them to find it fairly easy to kill and be quite ruthless with other human beings. It's rare. It's, about 1 in 100, 1 in 200 individuals are born with this propensity, and not all of those who we would describe as fledgling psychopaths, not all of those go on to kill people. Most of those go on just to cause chaos and suffering for others.
What are the triggers? What are the triggers that actually drive people such as these girls to commit these acts?
It's just quite simply egging on of others, being brought up where being hard, showing toughness, being insensitive, being violent is kind of approved. It's part of the kind of criminal culture, if you like, where somebody with a kind of fledgling psychopath propensities would flourish. They would become, the prime leaders, the prime movers, the individuals who can without any sense of revulsion, without any sense of remorse, without any sense of empathy or feeling, carry out ruthless acts and actually, feel empowered, feel in control, feel that they're doing a good thing.
The court heard that the girls met at primary school. Separately, they were okay. It was when they came together they behaved like devils, to quote the words exactly. How likely is that?
It's very likely. It could be both individuals have that propensity, or that one is, of a lesser hardened character, but feels that they suddenly have more power with this other individual. Also, of course, you've got this business of egging people on. If one person has fantasies and dreams and propensities for manipulating, controlling, or even harming others, it possibly doesn't get enacted, but someone else, a buddy, a sidekick, someone to egg them on, could be the kind of pivotal point that actually pushes them into action.
In a moment, we're going to be hearing from a lawyer who might give us an idea of the sort of the precise sentencing, and we'll talk a little bit about rehabilitation, because, of course, these are minors, they are children. Can these people be fully rehabilitated, Doctor?
It does depend, obviously. I mean, if this is, the result of feral upbringing, if this is the result of, extreme environments and extreme teenage experience, if you like, because, it's quite a tough time, is teenage. This is the point of proving yourselves, the idea of competing to be hard. This is where, hormones kick in. The peak age of female offending is 14 years of age. This is, a time of turmoil, if you like. When that settles down, perhaps, but maybe, if they do have these fledgling psychopath propensities, that is for life. That is something that does not change. One or both could be a danger for the rest of their lives.
Thank you very much. Dr. David Holmes is a criminal psychologist at Manchester Metropolitan University, wrote Born to Kill, Nature and Nurture, 841. Well, I mentioned the legal aspect. Joseph Kotrie-Monson is a criminal defence lawyer specialising in serious crime. You'll find him at Mary Monson, solicitors firm on Fleet Street, and joins me now. If I can read you something that the judge said, Mr. Kotrie-Monson, Mr. Justice Globe said they faced life sentences. He went on to say, I am not ruling out the possibility of a long term. I don't think either the girls are fit to deal necessarily with a long period in jail, though. What will determine the judge's sentencing here?
Well, the primary factor, Nick, will be your age. But before we go on to that, I must take just one or two things that the previous expert has said. I have to say that the idea of talking about teenage girls who are potentially fledgling psychopaths flourishing in a certain environment, I think I certainly, as somebody who's worked with a number of damaged people who commit serious offences, am frankly offended by the idea.
In what way offended, Mr. Kotrie-Monson?
Well, the reality is we're talking here about children. We're not just talking about somebody who is has a predisposition to a psychopath. Therefore, they will enjoy falling into severe mental illness as a result of a background of abuse. We're not talking here about a case where somebody just had a disposition. We're talking about a case where it's documented, as the experts should know, that there was a horrific background of abuse in respect of at least one of these people.
But not the other. In fairness, and I'm very happy to debate this, and obviously you're both experts in your respective fields, but certainly in Girl A, I think you have a very good case. What it must be like to grow up seeing your mother regularly beaten by your father must be horrific. But Girl B actually was from a stable family.
No, absolutely, and you have ringleaders, and the reality is that the workings of the jury's decision in that regard as to who the principal party was concerned, I'm well with you on that. Okay. But the idea that we can talk about in a kind of pleasant way about the idea of psychopaths flourishing, and 1 in 100 of us is a psychopath, and it's just a question of whether we get the opportunity, when the reality is that the major question here is an environmental question. The idea that 13 and 14-year-old child, and girls at that, could be involved in such horrific crimes is a new thing. It's arguably a factor of a new type of society in which these types of people are precisely the people who are ignored, and it's irresponsible in the context of promoting a literary career, that we should be talking in a kind of jokey way about the fact that 1 in 100 of us is a psychopath. Now, let's get on to the main issues, Nick.
Go ahead.
Now, as far as sentencing is concerned, well, if this was an offence involving adults, there's no question we'd be looking at a 25 to 30-year-old, 30-year minimum recommendation, possibly even a whole life sentence. They're rare, but this was a particularly tragic, senseless, and horrifying at every level and prolonged attack. Of course, it's the type of violence that disgusts us in humans. In children, we find it utterly perplexing, as you've rightly identified. The idea that girls could be involved in such violence is horrific, but the reality is that in youth sentencing, the general principle, and of course we've already heard rumblings that the judge will not be adhering to this principle in isolation, but the general principle is one of rehabilitation, because we've got not just in the law but in society, we have an impression, we have a fixed idea as human beings that children, largely speaking, are, number one, products of their environment, and number two, start out relatively blameless. It's as they get older that we ask them to take responsibility for their actions. You know, the idea is, the reality is there will be extensive efforts at rehabilitation. Of course, that's already started in respect of one of them, because one of these defendants was running the defence of diminished responsibility on the basis of mental illness. Whether that was accepted by the jury is a moot point, because much of what the medical expert, the psychiatrist, said could have been accepted without it giving rise to a manslaughter verdict. You know, that's certainly a good place to start.
Sentencing is tomorrow. Joseph Kotrie-Monson, thank you for your contribution on various aspects of that. You're a criminal defence lawyer at Mary Monson Solicitors on Fleet Street. All right, coming up after the news, you will hear that chilling tape that was played to the court and obviously played to the jury as they make that call, and just laughing as having beaten this vulnerable woman to death and leaving her half-naked body blood spattered in the apartment. That call right after this. 8:46, just LBC News headlines. Lisa Aziz.
Junior.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton. With hotels in Amsterdam, London and Berlin.
Right. Well, hear these killers now in their own words. The two girls made a spur-of-the-moment 999 call after killing Angela Wrightson to ask for a lift home. They even managed, they laughed, and you'll hear them, although we of course covered it up, swearing at the operator. Here's some of the call.
Hello, can you please? Hello?
I've just reported myself missing. I've just
reported yourself missing?
I'm
shouting in my ear. Can you just, what are you on?
Like, I've just rang to let the police know where me and my friend are at. Will you...
There's no need to be swearing, ringing up and swearing and going on like that. What's your name?
Well, I'm called.
Right, and where are you? Suggett Street?
Yeah. Stephen Street.
Pardon? You're in Stephen Street?
Yeah.
What's so funny?
No, you're just a bit funny.
I'm not being funny.
Sure.
Right. So, listen, right, you're in Stephen Street. We'll get somebody along there as soon as we can, all right? Right, okay.
And that's how the killers felt just minutes after having killed that vulnerable woman.